If you've tried to build or even just upgrade a PC in India any time in the last few years, you've definitely felt it. That mix of confusion, frustration, and just plain sticker shock, it has been an absolutely wild ride, with prices swinging more than you can possibly imagine. So what on earth was going on? Okay, let's dive in and try to make some sense of all the chaos. I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? One minute you're pricing out your dream build, feeling pretty good about it, and the next, a single graphics card costs more than a decent secondhand car. I promise you, it wasn't just your imagination, and we're gonna unpack exactly what caused this perfect storm in the Indian PC market. You can really break this whole saga down into three distinct acts. First, you had the calm before the storm, back in 2019 and early 2020 when things were, well, normal. Then came the perfect storm of 2021 and 2022, where prices just went through the absolute roof. And finally, the cool down period from 2023 onwards, as things slowly and, thankfully, started getting back to normal. So let's zoom right into that chaotic middle period. It's super important to understand that this wasn't just one single thing that sent prices to the moon. Nope, it was a combination of massive global events that all decided to hit at the exact same time, creating this huge domino effect that every single PC builder in India felt. And here are our three main culprits. First, the COVID-19 pandemic, which completely changed how we live and work, kicking off a massive work-from-home boom. Second, this, in turn, created a global semiconductor shortage, as literally everyone suddenly needed new tech. And third, layered on top of all of that, was the absolute frenzy of the cryptocurrency mining craze. And to put that first point into perspective, it wasn't just a small trend. A report from Bureau Inc. pointed out that the shift to remote work was a massive, fundamental change. You had millions of people all at once needing to set up proper home offices. And that meant a sudden, totally unprecedented demand for laptops, monitors, webcams, and of course, all the components that go inside them. All right, now for the main event, the graphics card. Seriously, no other component tells the story of this era quite like the GPU. Its price journey wasn't just a roller coaster. It was more like a rocket launch, with its fuel being the crypto gold rush. Just look at this data from March 2022. It shows you just how disconnected prices became from reality. An NVIDIA RTX 3070, which had a launch price of around $500, was selling for over $860. And check out the AMD 6800 XT, a staggering 74% over its MSRP. These weren't just small markups. This was a market where the official price meant absolutely nothing. Across the board, things were just insane. On average, NVIDIA cards were selling for 50% over their suggested price, while AMD was at 38%. So why the difference? Well, simply put, NVIDIA GPUs were generally in higher demand for both gaming and mining, which meant sellers could ask for an even crazier premium in a market that was starved for supply. Just when it seemed like prices would never, ever come down, the biggest driver of that GPU bubble finally began to pop. The crypto market, which had been on this unbelievable rise, started to seriously falter. And the effect was almost immediate. As early as January 2022, reports were showing prices were already dropping by up to 11%. Then, as the crash got deeper, miners started panic selling their cards, flooding the secondhand market. This, in turn, forced new card prices down. For PC builders everywhere, this was the moment we had all been desperately waiting for. Now, while GPUs definitely stole the show in this price drama, they weren't the only actors on stage. The supply chain chaos sent ripples through almost every other part of a PC build, sometimes in really unexpected ways. I mean, everything from power supplies to cases saw some inflation, but the stories of CPUs, RAM, and storage show some truly unique market behavior. CPUs followed let's say, a more predictable path, though they still felt the pressure. Take the legendary AMD Ryzen 5 5600X. It launched in late 2020, right at the peak of AMD's comeback, and it had a premium price tag of nearly 23,000 rupees. Now, it was hard to find for sure, but it didn't see those absurd 70% markups like GPUs. Instead, it followed a classic tech lifecycle. As supply got better and new stuff came out, its price gradually fell. By 2025, you could snag one for around 15,000 rupees, a 33% drop. It's the perfect example of how with CPUs, a little patience can mean some serious savings. Okay, now this is where things get genuinely weird. With RAM, we saw something called a price inversion. Now, logically, the new, faster technology, DDR5, should be way more expensive than the old standard, DDR4, right? But for a short, totally bizarre period, the exact opposite happened. As manufacturers shifted their factories over to making the new hotness, DDR5, the supply of the old tech, DDR4, just dried up. And this was happening right when millions of people on older, popular platforms still needed it. And the crazy part is how fast this all went down. In just 1 week, in June 2025, prices for some DDR4 kits shot up by a massive 40%. It was a classic supply and demand pinch. Meanwhile, as DDR5 production was ramping up and SSDs were getting cheaper and cheaper, you had this strange market where upgrading to the very latest tech was sometimes actually cheaper than just maintaining the old stuff. Wild. So after living through all of that madness, what did we actually learn? I mean, understanding the past is great, but the real goal here is to use that knowledge to make much smarter decisions for your future PC builds. So, how do you build smarter from now on? First, the crypto link is very real. If you see crypto markets start to tumble, cheaper GPUs might be just around the corner. Second, new product launches are your best friend. They almost always mean discounts on the previous generation. And of course, keep an eye on global supply chain news. But maybe most importantly, resist the launch day hype. A little bit of patience can literally save you thousands of rupees. All right, so let's wrap this all up. The key thing to remember is that the price you pay for PC parts in India is directly linked to big global events. GPUs are the wild card in the deck, and their prices are often tied to things like crypto. The bizarre DDR4 price flip taught us that newer isn't always more expensive. And above all else, if you can just wait, component prices almost always come down. So the really good news is that the great roller coaster seems to be over and the market has finally returned to something resembling normal. Armed with all this knowledge, you are now in a much, much better position to navigate it. So I guess the only question left is, what are you going to build?